One of the things you can also do is you can save settings to views. So I haven't really talked about that. We've just been setting up, oops, wrong button, setting up different visual settings. So I could actually save the northeast preset to the northeast isometric, and I could save the right to the right and the southwest to the southwest. So every time I click on that view, it actually sets that preset for me. So instead of having to go back and adjust it every time. So if I close this, I can edit this view and I can link the preset, right? So if I go to northeast, that is now linked to that if I save it. I can come to the right and I can link the right one with it and save it. And then I can go to the southwest isometric and I can link the southwest with that one and save it. Now the only thing I really need to do is if I go to northeast, I would have to go in and make sure that the correct lights were on for it. So if I go to right, that's not necessarily the correct lights. I would have to go in and change those guys to the these guys, to the ones that I had set for the right. Or if I go to the southwest, I would have to turn these guys off and turn on the southwest lights so they would work. But it does consolidate it down, so that's kind of helpful if you want to do that. The final thing that I want to talk about is, let's go back to the northeast, right? And get rid of these guys. Boy, that's a lot of light for the northeast. And off that. There we go. And let's go to perspective and back to northeast. There we go. Sometimes it just gets, it's funny how sometimes it gets spotty. I zoom in, it goes away. I don't know. It's a little bit of a visual thing. But let's go ahead and talk about putting a different material texture on there so we can see the split. You got to split these things. You spend a lot of time with the profile splitting them. So let's see if we can get that to work, which I'm sure we can. I have confidence. So if I go to the materials, I have this plaster, right? And I can go ahead and right click on that and I can duplicate that material. So I'm just going to duplicate it, right? And we can name it plaster and I'll just name it bump. Okay. And then I'm going to take that guy and apply it to the blue. So I'll apply that to the blue. Apply that to the blue, right? And it doesn't really change anything. What I want to do, though, is change the quality of the bump map that's on it. So we change these to Inkscape materials, which means we can go to the Inkscape tab and tune them in the Inkscape tab. So I'm going to click on Tune Materials, all right? And I'm going to come to the materials and I have the plaster and the plaster bump. If I click on each one of these, I have different options. So if I go to the plaster bump, which is now on that, I can set a bump map on it, which gives it a slight texture. So if I come in here and I click on this little texture guy, I can go and get, and I've given you a couple of different textures to choose from. You could download your own if you want to. Don't go crazy. We want it to be subtle. And so if I go to textures, there's a few different ones, right? There's a sand one. I'll use that one. And then we'll look at the ground forest. There are a couple of different kinds of maps in here. Normal maps are the newer version or the new improved version of the bump map where it actually understands the angle of the camera and adjusts for that. The old bump maps were simple binary maps like the black and white map. And when you got up to the edge of it, it looked very strange. The normal maps do a better job of that, but sometimes normal versus bump, it depends on which one you think works better once you put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and put the sand on here and click open, right? And you'll see the sand come in and adjust, and you can start to see that split, right? And if I adjust this guy, it'll get less or it will get more, right? In terms of, I would suggest going with a little bit of subtle change, but that is up to you. You can try different maps. So if I come and click on this guy again, it'll show me the normal map that I'm using. You can actually change the brightness of it, right? And it will actually make it more subtle, right? Because it's less drastic. There's less contrast. You can also change the texture transformation. It's doing what it understands to be a one-to-one. And I'll come back and maybe talk about this in the next one, but you can see the scale of it is different from here to here, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But you can go to the Explicit Transform, and you could take this up to like 5, right? And 5, right? And now you've got like a very sort of textural, or you could take it down to 0.5 and it halves the size of it, right? So you have some control over how that guy is working. I'll just get rid of that, put it back to 1. All right. So you can play around with that. No color, right? The other option is specular. So if I get rid of the bump map, right, you can come in and start playing with the specular and see if it will turn it a little shiny. You're starting to see, right? And if I pull the metallic up, it's going to make it more shiny. I'm not a super fan of this one. I kind of prefer the bump map, and I would say we don't really want it to look like a different material that is still white, but you can see it's reflecting quite a bit. So I would just say, keep it pretty subtle, So you can work with that and work with seeing your split. Again, no color. When I come in the next video, I'll talk about working with scaling the bump map that I was talking about before.